Welcome to this week's podcast. My name's Tom Putras, Head of Technical here at Skybound Wealth Management. Welcome on the Expat Investor podcast. It's been another exciting month in the month of March. And today I've got the absolute privilege, and it is really a privilege, to introduce everybody to Jamie Baulch. Jamie.
Hey, it's great to be on here. I'm loving it.
Thank you for joining me, mate. For anybody that doesn't know, and there may be some, right? But for anybody that doesn't know, Jamie, Jamie, you are an acclaimed athlete, right? You are a Great Britain sprinter, for all intents and purposes, who won gold at the Indoor Championships in, where are we, 1999?
Yeah, the World Champs, in 1999.
World Champs. And then an Olympic medalist. Yeah, as part of the 4x4 relay. Yeah.
I you know what? I laugh because whenever anyone introduces me as that, world champion and Olympic silver medalist, I'm almost thinking, is there somebody behind me? Like, because I think, how can it be me?
Yeah. Is it still surreal? Does it still come across as a surreal moment?
Exactly. Yeah, it does. I remember watching the Olympics. I think it was 2016, the Olympics then. So decades after I had got my Olympic medal. And I remember being in my living room and I remember watching an athlete go on the rostrum and get their medal. And I was literally sat in the living room like this and I went, flipping heck. My God, I've got one of them. And I ran upstairs from the living room, got my Olympic medal out, and I was looking at it going, flipping heck, I'm one of those guys. Do you know what I mean? Because
that's amazing.
It's weird. It's a really surreal moment because you just think to yourself, well, how the hell do you get that? And how did, it literally was decades later, I realized what I had achieved. I didn't.
That's amazing.
At the time,
I think, and you and I have spoken about this in the past, but you were kind of my era growing up. I was watching the Olympics when you were running on track, and I think maybe the biggest memory for me, and it's good to see maybe the hair isn't as crazy as it was back then, and maybe that's what most people probably remember you for, right? And I remember thinking, wow, that guy's got it all going on. Every championship there was a different haircut. Yeah. I think my favourite was like the real shaved side, and then the spiky bit.
Yeah,
and there was different colours at different times, I think. What was the inspiration behind the colours?
Well, I tell you what, one of my claim to fame is beating David Beckham, right? I beat David Beckham. How many people do you know who's been on a say they've beaten David Beckham at anything, right?
David will be on the podcast next week denying this, I'm telling you.
Yeah, exactly. I beat David Beckham to Best Hairstyle of the Year award.
No, you didn't. In the 90s? What, in the 90s? No way.
Yeah, I beat him. So I was the one, the chosen few, which have done that. So, yeah, it was funny, right? I got to about 16, 17. I was 17 years old, actually. And I've been raised by two white people. I'm adopted, so I'm mixed race, and my mum and dad they've raised me, right? So I'm just going to give a bit of a background to
sure.
Right? So when you grow up in a white family, but you're mixed race, you automatically go to the white side of your sort of,
of course,
heritage, because I didn't know any other side. But when I started doing athletics and started hanging out with loads of black guys and sprinters and all that, when I got to 17, and all the black guys were really cool, on the road. I remember going, oh, I like that guy. I like this guy, And then I suddenly went, I want to show a little bit of culture myself. So I remember going to the hairdressers, and my hair was short on the sides, about this long on top, like, a bit longer than this.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting braids put in it, and they came out and they were long. And I was in the hairdressers from when a TV show which used to be called Neighbours, which is the Australian. That was on at 1:30 in the afternoon. And then at 5:30, I was still in the chair getting my hair. I was in there that long. I got home. My mum and dad didn't know I was going to do it. I got home.
Oh, no.
I know. And I walked in the living room and I thought, oh, what's my mum going to say now? And she looked at me and she went, Jamie, I really like your hairstyle, right?
No.
Yes, back of the net. So from that moment onwards, I that was it. The rest is history. Since my mum gave me that freedom to be able to do it, I just wanted to express myself. So then I started listening to a lot of reggae, Bob Marley, all that stuff.
Okay.
And that's how it all came about, basically. Yeah, brilliant.
That's amazing. So as a fan looking on from the outside in, I mean, it's all we see is you turn up at the track and win second, third, not place, like fall, I don't know, right? Whatever it may be on the day, however it goes. But what was it like? What was it like in your career when when you go into, obviously you get to a point where you've now entered the circuits and you're trying to get into that space. What is it like I mean, what does your normal week look like? What are you doing?
Well, I was very lucky. I won the World Junior Championships in the 4x100 meter relay back in the day, with Darren Campbell being in it, who ended up winning an Olympic gold medal and silver medal in the 200 meters. We broke the World Junior record, so I was very good when I was 17, 18, and we did that in Seoul in Korea. So I was a very good athlete. But it was only really, but it's all well and good being very good as a junior. It's trying to then be a senior. And when I got into the seniors and racing Linford Christie and John Regis, I mean, come on. No, I was then at the back, right?
Yeah.
But I was very lucky in 1994, Colin Jackson at the Commonwealth Games, and let me put it into context. In 1993, Colin Jackson broke the world record in the 110-meter hurdles and won the World Championships. In 94, a year later, I'm at the Commonwealth Games, my first senior championships, and Colin said, "How would you like me to be your coach?" Like, really?
Wow.
Like, you're competing still, right? And I was like, yeah, of course. He said, "I've got a house in Florida. Linford's got another house around the corner." I know. Mark McCoy's got one down the corner. So he went to Tampa to Florida, swimming pool, the whole trimmings. Colin was 27 at the time. Ended up going over there. And what do they say? Success breeds success. In our training, it was Linford Christie, Colin Jackson, Mark McCoy, Darren Campbell, Merlin Ottey, Frankie Fredericks. I mean, I suddenly got whisked into the fastest running group in the world.
Yeah.
And success breeds success. So what did my daily routine look like at that point? Was literally being sick every other day.
Trying to keep up with these guys on the job. Yeah.
It was horrific. I mean, it was horrible. Even though I was in a great environment, I ended up stepping up to the 400 meters around that time, which was done by an accident, really. I had a race in Cardiff, ran really fast, and suddenly I went, "Oh my God, I'm in the wrong competition." 100 and 200 meters. So I moved up to the 4 like that, broke the Welsh record in my first race, beat Roger Black in my second race, ever. So suddenly I went from being here to bang, right? And I later got an Olympic silver medal. So what people don't realize is behind the scenes, I mean, it's horrific. I used to train Christmas Day, I mean? It was so many repetitions, so hard work. I had my ex-partner, she was pregnant at the time with my oldest son now, called Jay. He's 29 this year. I mean, it was hard. What people see on TV is the glamorous side of athletics, which is either a medal or doing pretty well or whatever. But behind the scenes, it's like you guys in work. They see you get the big deal, you've done a good thing. They don't realize all the paperwork you've had to do. You're up at 10 o'clock at night, you're stressed. Your wife's putting on the food and you're like, no, leave it, because you've got to get the deal done. It's the same concept. The difference between sport and business, there is no real difference. It's pressure wherever you are, and it's all about delivering at the end of the day.
From a financial planning point, here at Skybound, obviously we sit with individuals all day, every day, and we coach people through how to manage money, what to do with their money, where to put their money. They're working, they're accumulating money, or they're retiring and they're decumulating money. For someone who's an athlete in the peak of their career, you've just said there, Jamie, you've been invited over to Florida. Well, if you're running every day, I'm assuming you didn't have time for a job. So who's paying the bills in those outfits? I mean, what's happening there?
So yeah, athletics is tough, right? Because the difference between, let's just use two sports, athletics and football. In football, you can be any team in the Premiership and earn a seriously good wage, right? Sure. You could be the worst footballer in the Premiership. It's got to be the worst. Not without saying names, because you wouldn't know his name because he's the worst one, right? So my point is it's going to be one person who's, and they're still on 10, 20, 30, 40 a month, week. So football's a different animal. Athletics, if you win an Olympic gold, you earn a lot. If you win a silver, you earn less. If you earn bronze, it's less. If you make an Olympic final, it means nothing, right? It's that tough. So To give you a little idea, somebody like Linford Christie would have been on about 50,000 a race. So it was footballers' money. You're talking in early mid-90s, a lot of money. So people like Colin and Linford were earning very good money. Just a quick story on that, which just remind me of something. I remember our agent coming into our room at one point. It was me, Linford, Colin Jackson in there. And she had, and he used to get paid in cash at times, right? Brown on. So Linford used to constantly walk around with £20,000 in his wallet, cash, right? I'm not even kidding you, it was nuts. In his So I remember the agent getting a brown envelope and throwing it to Linford, and he went, you know, boom. She threw Collins his, she mine, it was just fluttering in the air for like about a minute. So my point is, like, you know, we used to get paid okay, you know what I mean? So people seem to think that, you know, the athletes in the 90s and all that didn't really get paid. They were earning, Colin and Linford were earning as much as the footballers, if not more. So, but you had to be the pinnacle, and that's where it drops off. You know, some years I did pretty well, other years I didn't do anything. And unfortunately, you know, the questions you sort of asked is, nobody really teaches you what to do with money back then. You spend it, you buy silly things, and you know, that's something which really needs and needed to be sort of addressed, really, you know, because I look back on my running career and I go, oh my God, I wasted so much money, you know what I mean? And I just wish I was chatting to, say, somebody like you at the time. That would have made a
in that process to finding success, though, Jamie. I mean, you know, I'm assuming you're not earning good money when you're starting out, right?
No, and there was no lottery grants then, you know, like some of these athletes today, they get 20, 30 grand a year, just lottery grant, just to enable them to train. I was very fortunate because when Colin said, can I be your coach? He said, by the way, I'll pay for you to come to Florida. And he used to pay for me business class flights, didn't have to pay in his, you know, to stay in his house, all the food. He was flying me business class over to Australia, you know, and I was literally out of my house for about 7 years of my life, on and off, for about 6 months each year. And Colin pretty much paid for a lot of that. So Colin was my lottery grant. So I owe Colin my career, really, between him and my parents. I mean, you know, would I have made it without Colin? Who knows? But he definitely gave me the bunk up and the environment to do that. But if I was to look at, say, somebody like Colin or Linford, they didn't have anyone like Colin or Linford. You know, I was So they just done it off sheer hard work, and you know, they would have had nothing. You know, I mean, nothing. And Linford and Colin didn't come from backgrounds which were affluent. They didn't have any of that. Oh, look at the silver spoon. They just did it by sheer hard work. So it's a tough sport. It's a very tough sport.
We had an interesting conversation on last month's podcast about protection and the key for individuals to ultimately protect themselves during their working life from things like critical illness. And in the, you know, even the event of death, when someone passes away, you know, what's the financial impact on the home? You know, if you're the main breadwinner, as an example, what protection have you got in place to look after the loved ones that you leave behind? I think in sport, you know, especially in athletics, and what you're saying there, you know, you're having to win races, you're having to win competitions, you're having to win gold medals, silver medals to be able to start earning at some level. And yes, there may be some help along the way, certainly today, but I guess that injuries must be a massive, massive threat to somebody's financial future.
Yeah, well, you know, I've seen it with athletes who are doing pretty well. You know, I used to be a sports agent for a number of years. And, you know, when I used to look after certain athletes, without saying certain names, but I remember one athlete I used to manage, he was getting sponsored by Nike, had a very good Nike deal because he was world champion. But then he got injured. And that contract went from earning a lot to suddenly 75% of that earning gone. Because you've got to, the contract, you have to perform within that contract. They don't just give you money. It's not like where you can sit on the bench and, like, you know, Gareth Bale earning 700 grand, you know, it's not like that. You've got, it's a very good sport, track and field, but it's a very cruel sport as well, you know? And the thing is, though, you know, as an ex-athlete, you know that when you go into it, when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, when you start getting good, you know the consequences of it. You don't entirely know about it because you don't. The other bit which does help is when you get good at it, you also get sponsored. So I was sponsored,
Okay.
with Puma, and I was on a pretty good retainer. I was doing a few TV bits. So it's not just athletics. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can earn money, and in fact, I earned more off the track than I did on, which was, which
Wow.
was very unusual. I
Do
remember.
you find that you have to work hard at that brand stuff? Do you have to, promote yourself? I look at F1 at the moment, right? And F1's gone through this huge transition, obviously with the Netflix series, right? And it was kind of a sport that was for a select few that people would watch on a Sunday and most would fall asleep to. Now to the drama, the action, the bickering, the bitchiness and all that kind of stuff. But there's some people in that environment that really exceed and build their personal brand well, like your Daniel Ricciardos of the world. And then you've got other guys who just don't want to know or don't get the attention because they don't put themselves out there. Did you find the same, growing up, and you have to be out there and, wanting to make a name for yourself?
I was really lucky. I would say of all the athletes around me, so Linford and Colin, for example, John Regis, all those type of athletes, they were huge athletes on the track. Superseded me every day of the week. Even though I did well in it, they were just next level stuff. But what I was doing off the track superseded all of them. You know what I mean? I had my own TV show. I was sponsored by Yves Saint Laurent. I don't know any sports person who got sponsored by a designer clothing label. I was doing stuff not because I went, oh, I need to make the money up somewhere else. It was just my personality. You know what I mean? I was always a bit of that funny, fun, charismatic, loved athletics, never took it too serious. And because of that, I think it came through the TV channels. And because of that, that's when the phone call rang and I would get those endorsements by brands like that. And, I look back and I think, bloody hell, it's still athletes today don't get that. The only athletes I know, track and field, I don't really know any athletes like that. But, the David Beckhams of this world had that back then and he's still got it now, So
For sure.
it's a tough world out there,
Going back to the career for a second, I mean, you went from being that kind of real short distance, and then, like you said there, transitioning into the 400. How did you find it transitioning into the relay team? Was it okay? I mean, you'd done relays before. Is it a very different thing being a team compared to being an individual sprinter?
Yeah, yes, because you've got four of you who, in fact, it's six of you, because if one gets injured, somebody else can step in. If another one gets it, six of you in the squad. I mean, when you get to Olympic level, and not just Olympic level, but Olympic medalist level, it's quite fearful. I went from not running any 400s really at all and then in 95, I started running. In 96, I got my Olympic medal. So I went from zero to hero within, a space of just over a year. And it was a kind of whirlwind, really. But when you've got three other people in that team who were really good, Roger Black, Ewan Thomas, Mark Richardson, you think, ooh, if you ruffle the feathers and you feel good, and you're going to get a medal unless you drop the baton, right? So and we never did, which was brilliant. Get that one in. So yeah, it was hard, but it was something which I really, really enjoyed. I mean, how lucky was I to be representing Great Britain, to win medals and, get watched by lots of people who, when you'd go down the street, go, oh my God, well done, it's you. Forget to this day. I was in Waitrose this morning and some guy comes up to me, you're that runner guy. And I'm like, yeah, and he goes, oh my God, you're my childhood hero. And he literally lost it in Waitrose. And he's looking at me, but he was lovely. He was really lovely about it. And, I feel very proud of what I've achieved and what I've done, and the one thing which I loved more than anything is making somebody like yourself, like you said, you used to watch me when you were a kid, and, nice that you can make that difference and make people feel good. And, I'm that guy,
Let's reflect on kind of the transition process then. I mean, you had a fantastic career, you made a name for yourself, and like you said, probably off the field just as much as on it. Did you find when you were was there a point where you kind of looked at your career and you were like, what do I do next? How do I not earn money by running? How do these guys are not going to pay me forever. The brands are not going to pay me forever. What happens next? What do I do?
It's very scary point of your career there, because you get to an age when you just go, oh, I'm not going to run any faster. Am I going to get any more medals? And you do have that moment. But lucky for me, I was very much, I remember it really vividly. I remember somebody coming up in Gateshead and going, "Oh, you're the runner, you're the runner, you're the runner." And I said to him, "Running's something I do, not what I am." And that,
Okay.
and he just, because ultimately running was a job, right? And
Yeah.
I identified that a lot of people in track and field or in sport, they get so wrapped up with what they're doing in it
Yeah.
when they retire or when they finish it, they get really depressed
Yeah.
because they're so consumed by they think their identity is that, but it's not.
Lose that identity.
Yeah, and I saw it. I saw people, friends of mine who I know, got very depressed after they retired. Whereas for me, because I was that charismatic, I had my own TV show,
Sure.
I sort of already could see that it was more to life than doing track and field. So
Okay.
before I even retired, I started thinking, oh, what do I like? What do I want to do? And I ended up going into certain things which I did enjoy doing and I still enjoy doing. So I feel very lucky, even though I
Okay.
wasn't earning anything.
Yeah, fair enough. And you say, you said earlier that there was no one really, I mean, you had an agent, right, at the time, and their job was to help you through and navigate, I guess, the commercial aspect of securing deals and going to races and stuff. But financial planning and what you said wasn't really a priority for you, wasn't something that you were doing.
Oh, not really. I did have one or two people sort of address it skated around the edges. You did get certain people, but it weren't done on a level which it should have been done. Like I think, and I don't know what it's like now, but I think it's something which is massively missing because, when
Mm.
you're a runner or a footballer or a tennis, star, or whatever you are, you do need those people to come in.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think, you know, it's been known, and you'll know it from the industry. You do get certain people who do come in and they give you the
Yeah.
wrong advice. I've seen it, I've heard it. Invest in this property, invest in that, and then you hear of these horrific stories. So
Mm.
companies like yourself are brilliant to be able to give sports stars that right advice because you've
Yeah.
got a pedigree to prove your
I mean, I
stuff.
guess some of the, I mean, you would have probably missed out on some of the really basic stuff, Jamie, in terms of, if I went to work today and I was working in Waitrose, let's take where you've been this morning, the lady behind the counter is working for Waitrose, and Waitrose have got a corporate pension that she pays in a little bit and they pay in a little bit every month. I guess you wouldn't have had that because you're not employed, are you? Are you employed at that point as you're not?
Technically, yes. So you could, you can do like Colin Jackson always laughs at me. How old's Colin now? He's 56. So he got his pension
Wow.
last year, and
Okay.
he's just going. Colin's doing all right anyway, right? So
Yeah.
Colin's
Yeah.
done very well for himself. You know what I mean? And but I was on the treadmill with him about 2 years ago. I remember going, "Oh, next year's my pension." I was like, "Shut up, Colin," because he'll rub it in. He'll rub it in.
Yeah.
Doing all right.
Yeah.
He would have. It's certain athletes like that who did have the right people around them to a degree. They did have the earning power to put a lot of that money into a
Sure.
pension, and now
Sure.
they're reaping the benefits of it. But I equally know there's a lot of athletes who didn't. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It's sad to
But it
say.
was that self-discipline. I mean, there was no one forcing it upon you. I think the lady in Waitrose is sometimes potentially has a
Yeah.
higher benefit because they're doing that for her, and she's not having to make that choice, right? It's just that it's almost a tax kind of
Yeah.
scenario goes off the top.
And you know what? And you're onto something. I think the dots should be joined up. I mean,
Mm.
when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, you go into the British team, juniors, go into the senior team. At that
Mm.
point, it should be there. It shouldn't be,
Yeah,
oh, what am I doing? It should be UK athletics or
yeah,
Jamaican athletics or South African athletics,
yeah,
whatever the country's company. They should at that point say, look, these are the people we recommend. I understand they can't say you've
sure,
got,
sure, sure.
but these are the companies we recommend and blah blah. And I definitely think that should be something there. So.
You mentioned earlier about how being on the track or being in sport is not too different from being in business. Today, you head up a number of ventures. Um, Tell me a little about uWin and BidAid.
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to always have a little bit of something more about me than just being a runner, right? And when I retired from athletics, I went, well, what's the biggest thing I could do now? I live in Wales, just outside, well, I'm in Cardiff. And I went, what's the biggest thing in Wales? Welsh rugby. So
Okay.
honestly, this is a great, great, great quick story. But so I went, I'm going to Welsh rugby and I'm going to tell them about themselves, right? And I met, right, because they're massive in Wales. Welsh rugby's still massive in Wales. Football's gone
Yeah.
up, rugby's Wales, right?
Yeah.
So I looked at their Welsh rugby calendar, and the calendar they were producing in 2004 was useless. I mean, it was really bad. It was really tacky. You know, if you looked at January, you'd see like red eye, you know, with a flash. February, they'd be the wrong sponsor. And I was going, oh my God, what are these guys? I knew all about sponsorship. Anyway, cut long story short, my only lucky gambit is I knew the chief exec, he knew me, and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So I said, can I come in and see you about something? Didn't tell him what. So next thing you know, I'm in the boardroom, in the Principality Stadium, and the picture's there, all serious. Chief exec, marketing director, sales director. So Jamie, what brings you here to do the, you know, why are you here? You know, you're the athlete, right? You know, sort of thing. And I said, can I be really honest with you boys? And they went, yeah. I said, the Welsh rugby calendar is crap. And they went, what? What do you mean? And I went, look, let me show you why. And I showed them January, February, March, April. I said, look, it's the wrong sponsor. What are you doing? And I said, so I've come in here because I want to do next year's calendar. They basically said to me, what do you know about making calendars? I said, nothing. But I said, one, I know I could do a better job of that. And two, you don't become world champion or Olympic silver medalist by being lazy. Give me the opportunity. They made me go out of the room like a schoolboy, and they came back and they said, Jamie, you've got the calendar for next year.
Wow.
So I went out and went, oh my God, what am I going to do? So anyway,
Yeah.
ended up doing the calendar later on that year, made record sales ever for Welsh rugby calendars.
Wow.
Went crazy. I even got it sponsored. So I made money before I even sold one, so that was a clever idea. And then uWin BidAid on the back end of that. I'm very visual. I really love images. I really love pictures and whatnot. So BidAid basically is a silent auction company where we do silent auctions for charities all up and down the country and also around the world. We've produced silent auction software, which I believe most probably one of the best in the world. I'm really proud of that. But like any other platform, where we're really different is the items we can put on the platform are unique. So other brands which just have the Lionel Messi shirt and the Anthony Joshua glove. How many gloves has he signed? You know what I mean? We try to do stuff different. And then uWin is a sweepstakes platform like the company called Omaze, which I think most people will know about that. But the difference there is I've seen a gap in the market of why don't we utilize celebrities, patrons and ambassadors for their own charities to enable to raise money for that. So I did stuff with the Harry Potter cast and we raised over 50 grand on that. Did stuff with Taskmaster, raised 15 grand with Greg Davis, just giving us 2 tickets to see his show and have a packet of crisps with him. So that's the sort of stuff I'm doing now. Keeps me very busy. I like it. It's tough. It's not easy. I'm not sat down lounging. I'm pushing really hard like I used to as an athlete, but I love it. So it's a good thing.
Awesome. What do you think the biggest lesson that you learned as an athlete you've taken into running your own businesses?
Well, the hardest thing being an athlete and being and now business is ethics is you cross the line first, you're the best. Nobody can tell you. You may like me, you may dislike me, but you're the best. In business, I could say to you, look at that calendar, it's amazing, right? And you'll go, no, I don't like it. And discretion for me was really hard to get over. I couldn't get my head around you saying yes, me saying no, and because I'm used to winning. So it's that competitiveness. You're saying no, I'm saying yes. I'm like, oh my God, no, agree with me. So I've had to learn the difference. And in life, it's all about discretion. We all think we're doing the right thing, right? If we weren't doing it right, then why are we doing it? So yeah, that's the toughest bit. But the bit I have learned from being a sports person is resilience. I can be knocked out or knocked down and I will still get up. I will not stop until I win the game.
And I think that's really big in entrepreneurship, isn't it? When you go it alone or you start a business, you know, I think having that sporting background of sometimes not winning and sometimes coming last is, you know, I'm not a sportsman. I played rugby. I've been on losing teams before. It's always the worst to be the loser or coming last, right? It's never the nicest, but it's how you bounce back and make a name for yourself in the future. I'll finish on this one because I'm conscious of your time and I know how busy you are. But we're in an Olympic year.
I know, right? Paris is just down the road.
Just round the corner, right? And it's only a few miles away from you. It's a little bit further for me. I'm over in Dubai. But what are you looking out for this year? I mean, who's on the track? Who's caught your eye? Who's going to do what?
So it's a guy called Leslie, a Botswana and 200-meter runner. Oh my God, he's brilliant! Like,
yeah.
Like everyone's talking about Noah Lyles, the 100-meter runner too. You know, everyone's the American. I'm like, no. What's this kid? He's young. I think he's only 21, maybe 22. He's brilliant.
Wow.
Oh, and then who else would I look at? Fanka Ball, the 400-meter hurdler, but she ran indoors and broke the world 400-meter record. I mean, it looks like she's jogging. She is brilliant. So for me, obviously, I'm going to be looking at track and field.
Sure.
You know, I just think I love it. I'm really, really excited for it.
Do you think Great Britain have got enough in it to top the table this year?
Yeah, it's going to be one or two. Josh Kerr, you know, it's going to be one or two athletes, which I think can definitely medal. And you know, that's what we want to see. You know, we want to see the athletes. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the great athletes now, which we remember, have all retired. People like Mo Farah, etc. You know,
of course.
So yeah, you know, Olympics is Olympics. You know, most people like sport, and most people like watching the Olympics. So I'm going to be glued, just like everyone.
Are you going to be there? Are you heading down or?
Yeah, I might be. I know I'm going to be out of the country in Turkey at the time. I'm going to be there a couple of months actually, but depending on what comes across my desk, I'm keeping it open right now. But if something comes my way, then like we could be chatting in a couple of months' time, and I'll be in Paris. You know, so who knows? Who knows?
Fingers crossed. Well, look, Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. It's been fascinating to learn more about the journey to becoming an athlete and the benefits of being one that's taken you into entrepreneurship today. We wish you all the best with BidAid and uWin. For anybody out there listening today, please go and check out BidAid and uWin for your chances to win some fantastic prizes and get involved with some fantastic charities. It's been great to have everyone on the podcast today. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to having you on again in the future.
Cheers.